Welcome to Workplace Whispers with Dr. Ogunlowo. Now, this is the podcast where we share insights, strategies, and expert perspectives on human capital management and contemporary HR issues. Well, Dr. Olufemi Ogunlowo is the founder and CEO of Strategic Outsourcing Limited. This is Nigeria's leading personal outsourcing firm that has managed over 200,000 plus employees nationwide. Well, he has a first-class honors in civil engineering, a master's with distinction in water and waste engineering, and a PhD from Loughborough University, UK. Dr. Ogunlowo has also honed his expertise at top institutions like Cranfield University, Lagos Business School, and St. Charles Strategy School, Chicago. Now, beyond academia, he is a fellow of multiple professional bodies, a licensed HR practitioner, and the president of the Employers Association for Private Employment Agencies of Nigeria, Federal Employment Council of Nigeria, and Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. Well, my name is Praise Umba, and with me is Tijani Oluwatosin.
Hi, Praise.
And of course, Dr. Ogunlowo himself.
Thank you, Praise. Thank you, Tosin. As you know, Tosin and Praise, Saturday, March 8th is the International Women's Day.
Yes.
And that will just be a perfect opportunity for us to celebrate our women in the workplace, but also to actually dive into human resource issues relating to women and also men, because, of course, as you know, we have two genders.
Definitely.
So it would be nice for us to use this International Women's Day to actually see what lessons we can learn, especially in the workplace.
Definitely. And like you asked earlier, we have lots of questions concerning the day. First of all, I want to know, is it out of place to wish you Happy International Women's Day?
No, we can wish all ourselves.
Because you mentioned earlier that we have male and female gender.
Absolutely.
So it's still an extension.
As long as you're alive, you can be wished happy any day.
Actually, happy all the days of definitely. Now let's go deep dive into the conversation, right? So this theme for the International Women's Day is accelerate action. That's one theme, and it's calling for diversity and equality in the workplaces and what have you. The interesting fact in that from these days that the World Economic Forum actually said that it would take over 2158, I think that's the data. I and Tosin were looking at it and we're really surprised before we actually achieve equality. And that's like 5 generations from now down the line.
Yes.
So we really want to know, what do you think about equality, especially in the workplace? Do you even think that there's any need to discuss this? Is this an issue?
So first is, what do we truly mean by equality in the workplace? Do we mean demographic representation? Do we mean equitable pay? Do we mean work assignment? What exactly does that mean? A lot of times, gender equality has been woven or intertwined with DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. Yeah. But the real question we should ask ourselves is, do we want to promote culture of excellence or culture of equality? So what exactly do we strive to achieve in the workplace? Is it excellence or is it equality? So that is what I would say matters to me more when it comes to celebrating women, celebrating men, celebrating achievements, not demographics.
I like the way you put it, excellence or
equality. It's actually, it's not that you have to choose one or the other. You could argue that you could have a blend of both, especially if you have people that have been marginalized or demographics that over the years have not been able to meet up to certain standards, and then you want to show them up. But the real question in the workplace is fitness to role. The employment should not be allocated to quotas based on gender or race or religion or any other statistical label that we want to put. But rather, we should be looking at what are the skills, what are the attributes that we need for this job, and who best fits this role. And once we do that, then we'll find out that there will be more inclusion, because meritocracy should trump equality.
So speaking of meritocracy and equality, so fitness to role and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if we want to put a balance to it in the Nigerian context, how do we balance DEI? How do we balance FTR? In the Nigerian workplace environment.
So the Nigerian workplace, if you want to talk about DEI, it's a little bit tricky because even if you look at it, I don't know if in your own generation, but in my generation, JAMB, they will say quota system. And so that's some form of DEI. But that, and also in that quota system, you actually have some states where they will say that the cutoff mark is X for a male and Y for female. But you also find out that certain states will have much lower cutoff marks than other states. Now, how does that make a child feel? A child that scores 240, but is from state X, but the cutoff for that state is 260, but the cutoff for another state is 190. So it means that you actually sacrifice excellence for inclusion. But can you actually achieve both at the same time? And that's the argument we could make. It's possible to achieve both at the same time, but it has to be strategic. It's not just going to be by way of sacrifice. It has to be a process where you know that, okay, we have deficiencies in this area, and over this number of years, we are going to do our best to build it up. But in building it up, we are not going to sacrifice those who have attained certain level of competence or capabilities in that space. Now, bringing it back to the workplace, do you pay in Nigeria? Have you had any instance in Nigeria where they say that a permanent secretary that is female earns lower than a permanent secretary that is male? Or a medical doctor that works in UCH or Luth earns lower than a male counterpart? Or even in the Ministry of Labor or Ministry of Interior, that somebody is paid lower, or even in the private sector. So the issue of equality is really over bloated when it comes to the workplace in Nigeria. Now, you could start arguing about participation in politics, for instance. Do we have enough women in politics? And those are issues outside of the workplace, except if you then say, okay, the workplace is also a national stage in terms of service, but in terms of getting equality in the workplace, I think that majority of women earn exactly what their male counterparts earn for the same work done in Nigeria. And so I would not say that that's a major challenge in this climb.
So speaking about this climb, let's paint a scenario, a case study where, okay, maybe we're talking about fitness to role. So there's this scenario where a space is supposed to be filled in the workplace, and you have a talent. I don't want to speak to a particular gender. Let's say there's a space that needed to be filled up, and you have two genders who are equally fit, competent for that role, but you have a class of gender who occupy more of that space in that particular organization. And speaking to gender equality, is it not necessary, or are you compelled as an employer to employ a gender who seems to be missing, or
because of representation, right?
Yes.
Okay,
I don't know if
so
Dr. Ogulawa understands.
I understand your question. So the first question you have to ask yourself is there a statistical significance to having a particular proportion? Because first is we must separate gender from sexuality, right? And so if we say that, it means we have only two gender, male and female. Okay, and given that, it means that the combination will always just be total number that you have, so X over Y, basically. So if you have 10 employees and you have 6 male, then you have 60% male. If you have 10 employees and you have 5 female, you have 50% female. So does it matter? It depends on fitness. I mean, science has shown us that women do better in a whole lot of things. So they are more emotionally intelligent. So could that explain why sometimes you find out that many institutions use women for their front desk, customer service, type of roles? It could be, because scientifically it's proven that they are able to manage their emotions better, and they're able to adapt to situations better, and they're able to also navigate difficult situations better. So in terms of fitness, and it doesn't mean we're not stereotyping that male cannot do the same, but in terms of fitness and ability to be able to adapt to that work, evidence abound that the female gender can do better on those kind of roles. So you might end up finding 70%, 80% of that workforce dominated by women. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what we mean by fitness to role. Now, you also find out that science has proven that when it comes to work that requires power and speed, that men do better. So in those kind of roles, you could also find a situation where you have preponderance of men in that workplace. But overall, it's really about what do you do and what is best, in your circumstance in terms of balance of your workforce. The proportionality of your workforce should not be because you want to satisfy certain international criteria or certain stereotypes, but it should be what is best for your own institution in driving the objectives of your organization.
So that's you were speaking to strategies, right? You talked about drawing the balance earlier. How we can, if there can be a fusion of both. That's both DEI and the other fitness to role. Thank you for that. So how can we make sure that we can? Is it possible to have a blend of the two of them? Are there strategies so that we don't, for the sake of inclusion, remove someone who is very fit for that role because you're trying to be inclusive, be more, gender friendly and all of that? Is there a balance to all of this?
So the question, again, it always goes back to arguments that we can make. So for instance, if you enter into the customer service room for a major telecom company or a major bank in Nigeria, you will not be shocked by whatever you see in terms of the sheer number of people that you see there and what the makeup would be. Most times, if you call into international help desk for airlines or for hotel reservations, like I've said earlier, and I'm not stereotyping to say these jobs are for women. No, there is no job that's for woman or job that's for man. It's the job that is for those who can do them. Exactly. However, is it also true that we have circumstances and situations where, for reasons not necessarily known to the people themselves or that they have not orchestrated, that they are actually disadvantaged? I don't want to use the word marginalized. So there are situations where certain groups of people are disadvantaged. Maybe historically, maybe they were not. So give an example in Nigeria. The southwestern part of Nigeria had free education, which at the time was by the western region of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. That gave an advantage, and that's why at the earlier stage you had more southwesterners having education. So that gave a head start to the southwestern state. Now, to catch up, to bridge the gap, you had the quota system, federal character, and all of that. But in the workplace, you have to be strategic. You have to ask yourself, do I have to do this? And if so, why? So let's assume that your business is located in a particular place. It would do you good to empower the people from that community. Now, what does it mean to empower them? It means engaging them, giving them jobs. Now, the question is, can you give them the job of the CEO, the job of the general manager? Why not? If there is a truly competent person from that environment who can do the job. But most times you will find out that they have jobs like drivers and etc. And I'm not saying anything is wrong with those jobs. Every job participates and contributes to building of the company, building of the economy, and building of the nation. But beyond just providing what we'll call task or administrative duties, you could actually say, okay, in this community, over the next 10 years, we are going to give scholarships, which is what you see, and we are going to then engage those who are truly gifted and able to then go through proper training programs such that they can then come into management over time. So yes, you can have a blend, and there's nothing wrong with having a blend, but it's really about what is your strategic objective. For your day-to-day job, put the best person on it.
So talking about putting the best person on the day-to-day job, so let's look at, do you think there are potential pitfalls when we talk about DEI? And these potential pitfalls, what should employers and look out to in order to say, okay, there's this pitfall that I've identified from um, adopting DEI, and how can I tackle that pitfall as an employer? Because if we want to look at it critically, really, for fitness to role, basically, I might say I know pitfalls if I want to talk about fitness to role, but if I want to talk about DEI in the Nigerian workplace context, so what are the pitfalls I should look forward to if I'm an employer?
Interestingly to say, I mean, the way you said there might be no pitfalls to fitness to role, somebody else might argue that there could be. And so it's always about prism, with which eyes are you looking at it, and what do you call pitfall? Because one of the arguments on fitness to role, for instance, is that you might end up having a situation where you do not have diversity. So, for instance, you find out that your best hands to do the job end up being male. And so, of the 9 people that should be there, they are all male. All right. And so, for instance, in some clients, they will say, race comes into play also. Here also, race could come, ethnicity could come into play. So there could be pitfalls, because if you end up finding out that all of the people you recruited are Southerners or Northerners or whatever, some people could argue discrimination and marginalization. So the question truly is about what gets the job done now, and what processes are you putting in place to ensure that you then deal with the perceptions that may come with it. Now, it's better to have the challenge of having considered to have lopsided workplace than to have a mediocre workplace, because at the end of the day, while we support equal opportunities and want to eliminate biases, a rigorous merit-based recruitment role, assignment, and promotion is only what can make the business thrive. So if you say DI cannot make your business grow, DI can gain you sympathy, but incompetence cannot grow the business. So at the end of the day, it's truly about competence, character, and merit-based organization will give you that more than DEI-based organization.
Perfectly said. I had to, take that down. Competence, character, merit-based organization as well. Is there anything we left out of this table so that we can know that as we begin to wrap up this
what we
session?
should not forget is that we are celebrating women, and so this is actually not to bring down or anything, but to actually show that women do not need our sympathy. Women do not need us to look down on them or to demean them or to stereotype them to think that they need equality. Women are competent, women are smart, women are excellent, and many of the places where you see that there is growth, you would also see that growth has also been balanced by the emotional intelligence that women bring to the table. So we are not going to look at women with a monolithic view and say that women need us to shore them up. No, we're going to say we're going to celebrate women. We're going to celebrate the excellence that women bring to the table. So on March 8th, we are not going to be talking about equity or equality in SOL. We're going to be talking about excellence and fitness to role, that all our female employees bring onto their job.
Well, thank you very much. I think that pretty much sums it up. Thank you so much. And I'm a woman who's sitting on this table, so on behalf of all of us, happy International Women's Day. We'll continue this on our second episode, but I'm sure you have questions and contributions. You can drop them in the comments, and we'll take them when we come in our subsequent episodes. My name is Praise Mba.
And I'm Tosin.